Hi, fellow birdies, and welcome back to another edition of Mr. Songbird's Writing Mukbang. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's video is kind of special because it's the first time I've actually cooked something for either my or Crystal's channels. Well, helped cook in this case. At least I think it is. Did I ever cook something for it? I don't think so. I think I wanted to, but I don't think I've actually done it before. So I'm kind of proud to roll with this one. Especially given the role this plays in my family's history. See, my family used to make pesto pasta quite a bit when I was growing up. It was something my mom liked to make a lot. And I always loved having it, especially lots of pesto. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. It might be pesto. I think it's pesto. But if I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. It'll be a settle, decade, like a couple decades long, back and forth discussion, with my family, because we've always wondered ourselves. Well, I suppose we could have just looked it up, but we never did. But in any case, apart from the deliciousness this homemade pesto recipe, I also want to go into writing stuff. This is, after all, a writing mukbang. First of all, book 2, the first draft is officially done. My hope was to finish the full book by the end of the year. My writing coach says I may be making a mistake on that goal because he thinks I can probably get it done in like 2 or 3 months. Cross my fingers and I hope for the best there. Of course, maybe I won't be able to. Maybe I'll have to do better. I'll have to do more editing, but it has definitely think I can probably make it by the end of the year. Well, if I do get it in 2 or 3 months, maybe I'll wait an extra month or two just to make sure I get some extra editing. Because the way editing goes, it's got diminishing marginal returns. So the more you do, the harder it is to make it better. We can always still keep making it better. Now, one type of content I want to talk to you about, I'm looking into types of content I can do on this channel. One idea I've been considering is, as you may know from previous mukbang with Crystal, Evan and I have been writing a story together. As a demonstration of the editing process, would you be interested in watching me edit his story? In a recorded video. Basically demonstrating the exact process of how I edit it. If so, definitely let me know, along with whether it's pesto or pesto. Now, let's talk the writing and editing process, because, how should I put this? It's very easy to get bogged down. Like, writer's block is famous, but it doesn't have to be. So first I'm going to go over some tips for what you can do when you're faced with writer's block, when you don't know what to write. Then once you've gone through the writing process, I'll go over the editing process and what you're probably going to see when I do the editing for Evan's book, if I do a video of that. Now, here are 5 tricks you can do when you're facing writer's block. Because, well, sometimes you just run into a roadblock on a given story. You don't know where you're going, or you're not sure what you need to say, etc. Here are some 5 simple methods you can do. Method number 1 is very simple. Describe something in the scene. Could be a hamster. Could be the lights. Could be the coffee table. Doesn't matter. Go into detail. Yeah. Describe it like it's the new main character of the book. Now, it may turn out to be a waste of time, but one, this can result in you. Sorry. First, through describing it, one, it often in many scenes you can often add a bit of description as kind of like I don't want to say filler, more like to cool down the scene, as distinguished from filler, because filler is just like content to fill it up. Cool down is meant to like sometimes you don't want to go so fast paced. You deliberately want to slow it down, and description is useful for that. For example, you might be having a quick, back and forth, argument between two characters. Like each of them, do like one sentence, replies or like one word replies. Very, quick, very fast pace. But then need to kind of like give them time to think. That's where that description can fit in. Additionally, like just by writing, you can often like inspire yourself through the process of writing. Because when I'm writing, it's like, okay, what am I writing next? That's another method to make use of it. In contrast to description, method number 2. Rather than, describe something, go the opposite route. Summarize something. Now, I was a little bit nervous about the tomatoes, but we did roast them, and they are perfectly good. Yeah, it still boggles my mind how people seem to think I dislike all tomatoes. I love everything made from tomatoes. Well, pretty much everything. It's just raw tomatoes I'm not a fan of. You can cook tomatoes any day. Now, what do I mean by summarize something? In a recent scene in my book, I knew what was going on, but I didn't want to bother looking back into, okay, what exactly does this character look like? I want to keep writing and keep going with the flow. So what I did was, I simply said, in parentheses, describe this character, Zarin in this case. Spoiler warning, he's a character in book 2. And then later on, when I was going back and doing edits, I found the description, I put it in. You can do that kind of method for anything. You can say describe a character. You can say they fight, someone loses. You can go as much or as big or as small of a summarization as it can be just like she kicks him, or it could be an entire scene you summarize. That's what outlines are, after all, at the end of the day. And after all, when you come back, when you know what you want to write in that section, you can always turn that summarization to its scene itself, or just keep it relatively short, not a literal summary like I said, but how should I put it? I've seen combats that take pages upon pages. I've also seen a battle that takes not even a paragraph. It depends on what's necessary for the story. But the most important thing is when you're writing it, not when you're editing. When you're writing it, the point is flow. As long as you're pushing forward, as long as you're continuing your writing, no one's going to care if the first draft is garbage. They're just going to care about the version they see in the last draft, the one you actually publish. Third method, swap to another character's point of view. Like, basically kind of like, meanwhile, back in the Fortress of Justice, or whatever the genre is. You don't actually say meanwhile, but you get my point. Just describe what someone else is doing. And maybe that will turn into an actual plot that you want to do. Maybe you'll summarize it in someone else's point of view. But the point is, again, you keep moving forward. You keep pushing. Like, sometimes I'm not sure where I'm going with a scene. And I'll just, okay, I'll work on a different scene, the scene from someone else's point of view, or another scene from someone else's point of view. And then when I figure it out, I come back and do it. Option number 4. You can write a different story. I've done that many times in the past. Like, if I really can't push forward into this one story, I'll swap to another story and do my writing there. Now, it's not the best if you want to focus on getting one story done, but you might be able to get 2 stories done that way faster than if you did one, got bogged down, then finally slogged through it before working on the second one. Final option. And this is something I like to do. I like to find an author that I really admire, whose work that I really respect, and I copy down their work, word for word, letter by letter, as if I was writing it myself. Don't copy paste here, because that defeats the whole point. The reason I do this is, 1, sometimes I'll get inspired by their work. Also, it helps me practice their methods, like what makes their story good, so I can then use that same sort of method in my own work. Again, don't plagiarize. If you do that for the purpose of selling, well, for 1, you're breaking the law, and for 2, you're breaking the law. But feel free to copy it down for just to practice it, just to see what you can learn from it. Like, I've learned loads from just writing out someone else's work and just say, okay, what about this is really good? I don't necessarily mean plot, although plot's good too, but I mean more in the sense of, like, how does this paragraph make the story flow well? How does this sentence improve it? Stuff like that. Now, with that, it's very likely you're going to be able to conquer the enemy that is writer's block. Just remember, most important of all, and I basically think of it this way. As a writer, as an author, you have 2 jobs, mainly. There's other jobs, but you can possibly farm those out. But you have to write, and you have to edit. While you're writing, do not edit. By which I mean, don't tell yourself, okay, this needs to be improved. Let me work on this. Bad idea. You'll get bogged down, and potentially you'll find that scene doesn't, ends up not even being part of the final product. You wasted all that time editing it. Case in point, in the first draft of the book I'm currently working on, towards the end, my writing coach and I started, making some, not huge, not like complete, 180, but, twists to the plot. And each time, we made that change, previous scenes, so those established previous scenes became invalid. What did I do? I simply continued on as if I'd already edited it to correct that. I didn't go back because I wasn't done, because I wasn't editing. I was writing. So what I did is I simply said, okay, I'll write this scene as if the previous scene had been written the way it should have been instead of the way it was. Now, once you're finish your rough draft, once you have the first draft done, that's when you stop and take on your other role, which is an editor. Now, as an editor, there's a couple parts to that, a number of them actually. But let's see if I can kind of simplify it. A good way to look at editing at the editing stage is there's two parts to it. First, there's the plot edits. Then there's what I call the polishing edits. And it's, again, you want to do all the figure out all the plot edits before you start polishing. What do I mean by a plot edit? Well, it's basically any change to the story itself, rather than like the wording of a scene, like any changes you're going to make to what happens in the scene, what happens in the story. So, if, for example, rather than going left and facing a dragon, the character goes right and meets the kindly old woman who turns out to be a witch. That's a plot edit. If your tweaking is more along the lines of, okay, how do I better describe him meeting the old lady who turns out to be a witch? That's a polishing edit. Before you do any polishing edits for a given scene, make sure the plot's squared away, because nothing worse than spending a bunch of time editing a scene and then scrapping it. Like, gosh, I think that the entire original version of my first book was completely scrapped. Every word. The newer version is much better for it. But I just put in a lot of time and a lot of effort making it as edited as possible. And it was a waste. Because the original plot just did not work properly. Plus, 10 years of edits has an effect. Now, when it comes to editing, the polishing, like the plot stage, like basically take your time. Essentially, like, you might not do a full outline, but you want to take some time and think, okay, do I want to make any changes to what actually happens to the plot? Figure all that out first. And like you can put in like summary scenes there as well. Like I said, just like basically here's what happens in that scene. Put those throughout your story. Make notes. Your methods can vary. Let's see. Usually what I do is I put like bullet point notes in the manuscript. Like, okay, here's what I'm going to change. I've got a lot of them. Sometimes if I already know what the scene is going to have and I've already written out the scene, I'll just put a comment there. But generally with the bullet points, I don't usually go with a full, brand new outline, but you can. Now let's talk polishing edits. This is when you got the story written, you got the plot locked down, and you're just making the story the best it can possibly be before you hit that publish button and, hold on to your hat. Hoping for, well, basically that's when you press the publishing button. Now, I've tried a number of different methods. Here's my current favorite. The first thing I do when I edit the scene is I'm going to, go through it paragraph by paragraph, line by line, word by word, and read it aloud. As I read it aloud, I will make edits. The reason why you want to read it aloud is severalfold. One, it's very easy for us as writers to let our minds trick us and have us read, in our heads what we thought we wrote rather than what we actually wrote. I don't know how many times I've like gone and read a scene aloud. Wait a minute, I put two whats back to back here, or something along those lines. When you're just reading it, like when you're skimming and reading it not aloud, it's very easy to miss those. It's a lot harder when you're actually, saying, okay, read this word. Additionally, in addition to, apart from that, is, how to put this? A given scene or phrase could be entirely grammatically correct, exactly what you wanted to write down, and still need tweaking. Maybe repeat the same word like 3 or 4 times in a couple of paragraphs. Maybe when you read it aloud, you realize it's like splendidly he quickly ran smoothly away, something like that. Just the same ending over and over again. It just sounds weird. You're not going to be able to catch that very easily when you're not reading it loud. But when you do, you will. Now again, that's step 1. My next step, once I've done that for a given scene, and I'm coming back to work on the next pass. Basically, I do it in multiple passes rather than try to make each scene perfect from one to the next. I'll do one pass, go on, then I'll come back and do another pass, then another pass. Now each pass is a little bit different. The second pass currently is a dialogue pass. What that means is, unless something really leaps out at me, it's something that I need to get fixed right away. If it's not dialogue, I'm not gonna even look at it. I'm not gonna do anything with it. What I'm gonna do is I'm just looking at the dialogue. I'm reading that aloud because that's how should I put this? It's very easy to make the dialogue not flow accidentally. You get so bogged down in description, he said, she replied. They make a mistake in the dialogue. And by dialing down your level, or by dialing up your level of focus as much as possible, you can go really, you can catch things you would otherwise miss. And once again, I go word for word, line by line, just the dialogue this time. My third phase is, conversely, everything but the dialogue. I'm focusing on description here. Again, word by word, line by line, all reading aloud. Don't worry, it's pretty fast to actually read things aloud. It's not like super duper fast, but it's faster than you'd expect. Once I've gone through those 3 passes, usually it's not going to be perfect. Perfection is, how should I put it? It's a goal, but it's not something you're going to actually succeed. Because there's always room to improve. But how should I put this? If I spent an extra 20 years writing a book, that book would be one amazing book. But it might never see the light of day. I definitely wouldn't be able to finish up a series. But basically, that's what my editing is going to consist of. Like each time, I'm going to focus on something different. Like one time, I'd focus on the romance scenes. Another time, it might be combat. Another time, it might be color. It might be making sure that I'm describing not only physical like appearance, but sound, smell, taste, touch. Well, taste only if they're eating something probably, but you get the idea. Each time it makes it a little bit better. And then finally, once I've gone through enough phases that I feel it's, if not perfect, as good as I can reasonably get it. Well, I'll often ask a couple people like look it over themselves. That's what I've got like beta readers for. Yeah, as well as my writing coach. And if they don't, basically if they're say it's good, I say okay, and then I press that button, publish it, and get ready for whatever comes. Now, one thing that's I like to point out is flow is just as important in editing. You still want to do a very thorough job, but it's very important to keep moving because you can always come back and do another pass of a given scene. You don't want to find yourself bogged down for hours upon hours on end. One thing you can do if in a given scene you are having issues like that, simply highlight that scene or mark it down somehow and say, I need to focus on this scene more. Like sometimes I'll do that. Like basically I'll just go through and say, okay, these are the scenes I feel need more work. And then I'll look at them in much greater detail, just focusing exclusively on those scenes rather than going on a full pass to the entire book. Now, one advantage that you have as a writer that you don't with certain other kinds of content. Let's see now. With the video you're watching now, if I were to add like a scene of me talking about something else, it would obviously blatantly like added it, like it wouldn't fit. But with the writing, the audience doesn't see that seamless. They're just going to see the final version. That's all they're ever going to know. Take advantage of that. Make it, like, basically feel free to, just keep pushing so that you can catch it in the editing stages, make it amazing, and then show them something that blows their minds. And this works just as well for all forms of fiction, writing, and for that matter, nonfiction. Although nonfiction has different concerns. Like with fiction, as long as the plot makes sense and you don't contradict something in universe, you're probably okay. And if nonfiction, obviously make sure it's truthful and accurate as well. But yeah, that's all the time I got for today, fellow birdies. I hope you have a wonderful day. And feel free to make the recipe. It's delicious. I highly recommend it. Especially if you're vegan. But until next time. Bye, fellow birdies.